All right, this is Norvellcentral coming back at you with another YouTube video. And this time I actually have Khalil with me, one of my great followers that I've had that's been following my account for quite some time. And just wanted to
Yeah.
get him on here and showcase a little bit of his opinions. So that way you're not tired of hearing mine all the time. So I thought it'd
For
be a
sure.
good creative way to do everything. Khalil, if you want to shout out any of your social media accounts, go right ahead or anything like that.
Yeah, I'm not too big in social media as I used to be, but you can follow me at KJ Black on Instagram. I'm really just a fan and someone who I'm from Duval County, Jacksonville, Florida. Um, I played ball with some a lot of my teammates went on to play college ball. I was okay, not good enough to be D1, nothing like that, but I played at a pretty big high school here in Duval on the first coast back when we were good. I don't know what the hell they got going on now, but I got a pretty interesting and unique take on a lot of the things that goes on as far as recruitment and a lot of stuff like that. So I'm just here to give some input on it.
Oh yeah, of course, man. Like I said, we're all Florida State fans at the end of the day. We all want to see them do better. And the
Right,
last couple
for
of
sure.
seasons, we just haven't really been that great. And since Jimbo left in 2017, everything's kind of
Right.
spiraled out of control. We had the Taggart era, didn't really pan out as much, and then we got Mike
Hmm.
Norvell now. Mike Norvell's coming into his third season at Florida State, and he's really trying to kind of ride the ship a little bit. And like you said, this Saturday we're playing Duquesne. Everybody points
Hmm.
and circles of this game because of what happened last year with Jacksonville State. We all know what
Yeah,
happened.
for sure.
It was an embarrassing game. I was in the stands and on the visitor
I I
side.
remember watching that game, and I was laying right here in my bed, and I
uh,
seen the last touchdown. I cut my TV off and went to sleep. And I
yeah,
turned my phone on. I ain't want to hear nothing from nobody.
the worst part about it is I was actually sitting three rows above Zarek Cooper, the Jacksonville State quarterback's parents, and that was miserable. Um, but let's just go ahead and get started. Duquesne,
For
week
sure.
one, or week zero, I guess is what most people are calling it, week one for us.
Right.
Um, I think we're going to come out with a win. I don't think there's going to be much of let's just kind of play it around, a scrimmage. I think this team's really
Right.
motivated. Every time I've talked with Trey Benson and some of these other guys that we've had on some interviews with Spear Addicts, we've talked about the issue, and they've all talked about they want and are excited about this game coming up. They're not taking any
Hmm.
cuts or anything like that. I'm going to say it's going to be around a 59-6 kind of game. I think that's about right for what this team is. I think they're going to kind of let off the
Right.
gas just a little bit. What are your thoughts on this game?
I'm of the same vein of I do not think this is going to be like Jacksonville State.
Yeah.
Jacksonville State is a team that's teetered on the scale of being FBS and FCS for the
Yeah.
last 15 years.
Hmm.
That Jacksonville State will beat Duquesne by like 40.
Yeah.
Like it's not
Yeah.
I don't think that's gonna be nowhere near the case. It's more the lines and even to a lesser degree of a
Mhm.
UMass game. I think this is one of those kind of games where they need to start showing that you can, like Josh Pett says on 247, you can throw
Mhm.
your helmet out on the field and win the game.
Yep.
You need to start being able to do that again. Now I think like all the rest of the games will go through like the ACC. I don't think it's nearly as bad as people make it seem as far as actual football.
Yeah.
But still, this you got to get like these lower tier games and start just making them easy dubs again. I think they'll be fine. And I'm supposed to be going to the game, but it depends on if I can get off work early enough that
Yeah.
morning.
Gotcha. Hey, well, hopefully so. It's going to be a little bit rainy weather there. I'm hoping there's not going to be no delays
Right.
or anything like that. So we'll see how Florida weather does. It's very crazy, but we're going straight into LSU the week after in a
Yeah.
quote unquote neutral site game in New Orleans.
Right. That's I hate
Brian,
neutral site games.
yeah, and I mean Brian Kelly is a guy that Florida State's got a lot of familiarity with. Last season against Notre Dame in the season opener, we lost to him, by a field goal, heartbreaking fashion. We thought we could be able to kind of get
Yeah.
back into that game, and now he's bringing
Hmm.
an LSU team that's got presumably probably JT or Jaden Daniels at quarterback, the former Arizona State quarterback.
Yeah.
Emory is going to be out for the game with academic issues, and they got a guy like Noah Kane from Penn State. You got the Butte kid, the wide receiver there. They've got a lot of pieces, but I don't know if they've got a lot to gel together. And I think
Right.
Florida State could really benefit from playing them super early in their first game of the season, rather it being a late October, November kind of game.
Right.
I
I
have Florida
100%
State
agree.
kind of winning this game and more along the lines of a low scoring 20s type of game because I don't think it's going to be very high scoring. I think they're going to have to run the football efficiently. And I think it's going to be won at the line of scrimmage just based off of how they're going to be. And I think Florida State's going to pull out the maybe like a 24-20 type of win just because I think all the excitement of the game, I think there's going to be a lot of fans that think Florida State is not really superior to LSU. And I get their roster's a little bit better, but I think everybody's kind of stuck on the name brand emphasis of LSU because they are in the SEC, they have won at a higher level.
Don't even get me started on that.
But I mean, they were 6-7 last year, so it's not like they're a team that's going to wow you and pull you away. Now, like I said, if we're playing later in the season, I'd understand, but we're kind of playing them early. We're getting our best shot there, and I just think we're going to win this game.
Man, that I might sound a little bit crazy, but I think this is going to be similar to our Virginia Tech game.
Okay.
Not in the sense that we're gonna go out there and blow them out and embarrass them. Because I do not think we are as talented as them in a lot of spaces, but I don't think the gap is as wide as some people think either. And also, Brian Kelly is a much better and more proven coach, and from an organizational standpoint, and just in general, than Willie Taggart was. And then that's no diss to Taggart, because Kelly is just one of the best coaches in the past 20 some odd years. I think the game will absolutely be won in the trenches, though. And what I mean by that is neither us nor LSU have good or great offensive linemen. But both have a phenomenal defensive line, and both have a good bit of depth in those lines.
Yeah,
I think we both match up well with one another as far as our weaknesses. With us, based off last year, at least a weakness with us is wide receiver. And they have at least talent name-wise at the DB position. And their strength is wide receiver. But a strength that we have is DB. Now, the difference is, and I hope I don't frighten a lot of our fans because of the hype he's been getting since he started games the last five games last year. Amarion Cooper and Green and all these other guys, specifically about Amarion Cooper, he's good, and I think he will be good. But you seen when Jarvis Brownlee transferred, a lot of people say, "Oh, we don't need him. We got Coop and all this." And I don't think Jarvis Brownlee is irreplaceable, but we gotta remember that Amarion Cooper he didn't play as many reps as Brownlee did, so he didn't get the exposure. Just off numbers alone, he's not going to get exposed like Brownlee, but Brownlee played 500 snaps for us. You know what I'm saying? I don't think Brownlee was as bad as some people do. Even the Miami game, he held Rambo to almost nothing for 3 quarters. But you know how it is when the fourth quarter in the crunch time come, he did make plays down the field. So I get it. And I thought Brownlee got better throughout the last part of the season, just like everybody else. I think this is going to be a game we need that young secondary as far as Cooper and even Reynaldo Green to an extent, just young in the sense that he hadn't got a chance to play a lot because he's been hurt so much. And then the guys backing him up with AZ and McCall and Jerry and Jones, who they said have been having a good offseason. I got to see it to believe it. I don't think he's bad, but he seems either he's been put at the wrong position at times or his health. It has to be one of the two. Because he's not slow. He's not small. I don't understand why he struggled so much. It's either health and the mental. He might not understand the scheme or whatever it is. And I don't think it's that because, Fuller seems like a pretty good explainer of football. So is we gonna need that secondary to grow up? I think they fine in the back end with Dent and Robinson. I don't even need too much to speak on them. And I get into part of this when I do my my bold predictions. But I do think LSU is going to end up winning. I think LSU has more questions than we do from an organizational standpoint. And it just seems like JT Daniels is a kind of quarterback that we can, I won't say rattle or anything like that because he's pretty experienced, but I think we can get the best out of him on that end.
Okay. Hey, we're kind of on the same shoe in on that one, and I think that we could hopefully get that, and that would generate a lot of momentum, especially in the recruiting side of things too. Then
Yeah.
we go
Oh, excuse me.
go
Before you
ahead.
go on, from the offensive standpoint,
Hmm.
I think we'll be able to run the ball on just about anybody that we play
Yes.
this year, just off the strength of the interior of our offensive line being way better than it
Hmm.
was from
Yeah.
experience, from strength, and everything than it was last year, and with depth behind them,
Hmm.
and with to the difference between last year's running back core and this year's, we didn't have a quote unquote power guy. And I
Yeah.
don't want to strictly say Benson is a power guy, but he is somebody who runs with power. Corbin is,
Exactly.
he was strong, he ran hard, but it seemed like he just didn't have any thump to him as far as like a change in pace of with Ward, you got like the finesse guy, he can catch it at like the Alvin Kamara type.
That's right.
We needed a guy similar to like a Mark Ingram, like when he was running with the Saints
Yep.
and Kamara, someone just that runs. You have to prepare for that. The same. You can't play every running back the same way. And I say that to explain the difference with a lot of this stuff to some fans that may be casual fans or something
Hmm.
like. That's why I brought up my background.
Yeah.
I know what I'm talking about when it comes to football,
Yeah.
and it's. I think just due to us having Toa Philly as well, who I love, you can use them in so many different ways.
Yes.
And I think our running backs are going to be a problem for a lot of teams we play. With that being said, I'm a huge. I want some people call me a Ron Dugan's defendant, and it's not that. I don't. I
Yeah.
just know from me knowing him through high school
Hmm.
and guys like I said, one of my old teammates, DJ Matthews. He, I don't think Ron Dugan is a bad coach as far as teaching people how to play the position. I don't believe that. But I think he's been stuck teaching certain principles of wide receiver because of the style of offense we've had to play as far as blocking and all that
Hmm.
shit. And I'm sorry, excuse me, all the
You
stuff that
good.
we've had to do to compensate for not being able to just straight up block people. You know what I'm
Hmm.
saying? And
Yeah.
try to win out on a perimeter with different things. But that room, and it seems like they've improved a lot, but that room has to do something. It has to do something. If they
Yes.
aren't able to create any kind of space, whether it be short game, deep game, we will not beat LSU. We will not beat a lot of teams like that.
And I mean, when you talk about like the wide receiver position in general, I mean, the one name that keeps popping up time and time and time again is
Yeah,
6'7" Johnny Wilson. And I mean,
man.
that weapon alone could signify this season going forward, just with the success that we've had and with the lack of success that Jordan's had, just kind of being able to throw the ball to multiple weapons because this is probably the most talented
Yeah.
receiving core that he's had since he's been here. So I mean,
Mm-hmm.
you could say a lot about his injury history and different things like that, but in terms of talent and production, this is probably the best offensive unit that he has had all together in terms of offensive line. Running backs are still about the same, if you could say it. Replacing Corbin
Yeah.
is hard, but you're getting back a guy like Trey Benson,
Yeah.
you're getting a healthier Toa Philly. So there's a lot of good pieces there. I'm super excited to see what they do, and I think they're going to come out and showcase what they can do against LSU. I think that's a really big key for us going
Yeah.
forward, and I think Mike Norvell's talking about that. And then we always talk about the response with Mike Norvell. Every press conference that you talk with him, it's always about the
Right.
response. I mean, that is one word that he talks about ad nauseum. And this is where we're coming off a bye week against LSU, and we're going straight at Louisville. And this is
Yeah.
a game where we didn't win 2 years ago. I was in the stands at Louisville, Kentucky. I drove freaking 15 hours down there to watch Tutu
Oh
Atwell.
my God.
Yeah. And it was miserable. I hope not to see that result again. Now, Malik Cunningham, he had our best last year with the offensive performance that he had, and there was a lot of fireworks there in the first half. It was to the point where I thought we were just going to throw in the towel and give up. But this defensive unit,
Yeah.
like you talked about before, especially with the secondary, they didn't give up. They were able to kind of generate a little bit of momentum. Unfortunately, we did lose the game 31-23, so there were some growing
Yeah.
pains there. And Malik Cunningham, he is a dynamic quarterback, can scramble with his legs, can also utilize his arm in the deep
Mm-hmm.
passes as well. But really, the only receiver that he's got coming back is tight end Marshawn Ford, who I
And
think
one
is
of the
a
best
good
ones left
talent.
to go to
But
Alabama.
yeah, and it's just like he's good, but like they don't have a ton of weapons left. But I do know that they have Yasir Abdullah. He's coming back from last season, their defensive end. He's got like 10 sacks last year. So he is a
Did
guy.
Mortimer ever make it to campus?
He did not. From what I heard,
Wow.
and that's a Florida State receiver that a lot of fans.
That hurt my soul more than anything because I thought he was the most underrated player in the
Yeah.
whole class last year.
And I get the state of Florida at receiver wasn't great that year.
It
Um,
wasn't. No, it
this
was
year
not.
is fantastic, but last year they had to be kind of selective in what they did. So really, the only realistic targets were like Kevin Coleman, which went to Jackson State, and then also Mortimer that
Yeah.
got in trouble with the law and then ended up he still isn't there. So it's definitely going to be a challenging situation for Florida State at Louisville. I have them taking a loss here. I think it's going to be kind of more in heartbreaking fashion, just because I think it's such a high, moment. I wish they would have played this right after LSU, but I think the bye week really screws them up rather than helping them out, if that makes sense. I think a
Mm-hmm.
lot of times with the team and the mental psyche of being a great team, being even a good team, is to be able to get these games that you should not lose in these situations, especially after responding so well against LSU. I think this team
Yeah.
isn't quite ready yet for an environment that they've kind of struggled in recently. We'll get into
Yeah.
another environment later that they've struggled in a lot more in
Oh
years
yeah.
past. But personally, I think that this Louisville game kind of doesn't set up well for Florida State, and I definitely wish they didn't have a bye week after LSU.
I through conversations we've had in the
Mhm.
past, I just do not understand the Louisville thing. I love
Yeah.
Cunningham.
Hmm.
I think he is a top 3 QB in the conference
Yeah.
when he's at his best. But the only way I see us losing the game is if we come out of LSU kind of hobbled.
Yeah.
And I actually think we will, but this is why I think the bye week somewhat helps us in a way,
Okay.
is if we are somewhat hobbled in the trenches or anywhere,
Hmm.
we'll have some time to nurse whatever injuries we do have coming out of that
That's right.
game. And I think as long as we can manage to maintain Cunningham and the offense that I don't think will be as prolific as it was
Yeah.
last year, I don't see them necessarily stopping our offense. And I know, like we just said in the beginning of the video, it's kind of premature because we haven't seen this version of the team.
Yep.
But even I don't think if LSU, I mean, I'm not LSU. If Louisville played the FSU of the last 6 games of the season, I do not think they would have been able to stop us
Yeah.
consistently. And even with that game where we came back and all of that, and some people think Louisville let off the gas, I didn't see that at all.
Yeah.
That was Mackenzie Milton playing, in which he had probably his best game that game. But our whole offense is completely different with Jordan Travis. And I think
I
he's
agree.
going to take a big step forward from just the standpoint of being confident and knowing that even if he go out there and mess up 2 drives in a row, he's not getting pulled out of the game.
Yeah. And I think
And
that's
this
a lot of
is,
people they have a problem with that. They don't really quite understand that. I mean, the
but
confidence
that
level there.
just me with knowing playing before, like
Mhm.
if it means a lot to know that you are the starter,
Yep.
undoubtedly. That means a lot as far as your psyche. That means you don't have to worry about every little detail of how you do something if you don't
Mhm.
drop back in coverage right. If you don't, all of that stuff matters, especially with the QB who is supposed to be someone the whole team has faith in. You don't want that guy to be the least confident player out there. You know
Mhm.
what I'm saying? That's not a recipe for success in any level of football. But that is my only reasoning for me thinking we edge out Louisville. Is just I don't buy their defense at all.
I mean, that's fair. I mean, I really do think, like I said, on my thought process was that if it was a week before, and let's just say we had a bye week after,
Right.
into Boston College, which we'll preview in just a second, I think it would teach and kind of help the Noles a little bit more in this situation. But like I said, so you got us at 3-0, and I am at 2-1
See,
with this.
see, that's. I wish I could go. I'll say this. I
Yeah.
give us a 55% chance to win that game.
Okay.
LSU about the same, somewhat for different reasons. But I can see us losing to Louisville just off of Cunningham alone.
Okay. What I'll
But
do,
yeah, I'm nervous about that 3-0 though. I am kind of.
hey, especially with how Florida State's been the last couple of years, we'll definitely
Right.
see. I'm going to fast forward past these next two games. I'll let you give a brief synopsis of these next two, just so we can get through a lot of different things on the schedule. So we
Gotcha.
got Boston College at home. Phil Jerkovich is coming back. Talented quarterback. A lot of things going indifferently about Boston College this season because they're having to replace all 5 offensive linemen. And,
Yeah.
Zay Flowers is back and everything, but we'll definitely see how that program goes. I got us beating Boston College. I think
I
it'll
do
be
too.
relatively easy. I think by 10 will be a fair assessment, somewhere on those lines.
Yeah. I
What do
think it was going to be a blowout last year.
you?
I like along the same lines with you.
Uh-huh.
I think they just lost too much up front, and offensive line is not one
Yep.
of those positions like running back and receiver where it's mostly talent. You know what I'm saying? That's
Yeah.
not. You can be as big as you want to, as long as you want to. If you don't know what the hell you're doing,
Yep.
you're not going to be a good offensive lineman. And I don't know how they recruit. I don't keep up with Boston College.
Yeah.
That's in that aspect. That I don't think that's no. I don't think they beat us.
And then next we got Wake Forest. We're playing them at home. This isn't the Wake Forest of last year, but like I
Mm-hmm.
said, Sam Hartman has got that non-football injury that he's worried about. Prayers go out to him as he goes through
Yeah.
that situation. Hopefully he's fine. But they do have A.T. Perry back, the wide receiver that's very prolific, one of the better wide receivers in the ACC and probably in the country as well.
Yeah.
Um,
Absolutely.
so, defensively, they're not the greatest in the world, but, they generate some turnovers here and there. Overall, I think Florida State's going to win. It all kind of varies upon if Sam Hartman comes back in that game or if he's out.
Yeah.
Um,
Absolutely.
I think if he's out, we beat him by 14 or probably even more than that. If he was there, maybe a 7-point ball game or something like that. But you also have to think
Yeah.
last year when we got blown out by him, we had 6 turnovers. You can't have
Exactly.
6 turnovers against Wake Forest.
Yes.
I got us
That's
winning
a
that ball
well
game.
coached team.
So
Yeah.
go ahead.
That like you said, just said like that's a well coached team. You can't give them
Yep.
that many opportunities.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? They got guys that was in high school with me, and I graduated in 2016 on that team. Like
Yeah.
that's an old team. They coach well.
Yep.
Everyone know what they're doing. If Sam Hartman comes back, this is right along the lines with Louisville, but I think Wake Forest is a little bit better as offensively for one. And in certain spots, like a DB and
Yeah.
some spots along the line, I think they're a little bit better than Louisville. So if Hartman comes back, I could definitely see us losing. If not, I don't. I think we win that, and maybe by 10 points.
Okay. And then we're going to NC State the next week. Like we
Yeah,
talked about before, that's a place Florida
yeah,
State, even in the Jimbo Fisher era, could not win at that place. I don't know what it was about Carter Finley Stadium, but that place is rough. I've never been, but I've heard people talk about how tight that place was. Literally, when you're sitting in the first row, you're literally smelling the person in front, like the player in front of you. It's awful from what I've heard. Um, but Devin Leary is the quarterback there. He's very talented. I think he had like 35
yeah,
touchdowns last year. One of the better quarterbacks in the ACC. We play a lot of those better quarterbacks in the ACC, but
yeah,
just overall, they don't have Emeka Emezi there anymore with the wide receiver, and they've got some pieces to replace. But that defense is quite impressive. Probably one of the
yeah,
better defenses in the country. I
yeah.
have us taking a second L at this point. I think we're probably going to lose within 10 to 7, so somewhere around those range. Maybe
Yeah.
a 2-possession game, maybe a 1-possession touchdown kind of game at the end. But I just think it's too much to overcome for Florida State right now.
I 100% have us losing that game
Yeah.
for a lot of the reasons you just stated, and mainly, I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's the air, if it's the field itself,
Yeah.
if it's the city. We have never played good there.
Yeah.
2012 comes to mind,
Mhm.
and that
Gosh.
offense and defense
Yeah.
was loaded. Like you had Xavier Rose,
Hmm.
um, Joyner, every basically almost the whole 2013 team plus a
Yep.
couple guys that left. It's like I don't understand why we can't beat them there. And on top of the fact that this is probably the best QB they've had since Rivers.
Yep.
And like me personally, I think he is the best quarterback in the ACC because he don't make a lot of mistakes.
Yep.
And that offense from a scheme perspective is not anything special. They do a lot of basic stuff. And when they get in the tight spots and in a few games where the defense can't win them the game,
Mhm.
which is not often,
Yeah.
he bails them out a lot of the time. You know what I'm saying? So it's I don't see even with me thinking our defense is gonna be as good as I think it will be, I don't see us winning that game. I don't expect our offense to do too well from a run game. That's gonna be the harder teams, one of the harder teams to run on. Because that front is disgusting, especially on the inside.
Yeah.
And then they're like four deep at linebacker too. So I don't
Yep.
I don't see how we get around it, honestly. If we went up there, I will be I would be
I would
flabbergasted.
be. I would be real
I
shocked
don't
if
know.
we did. I don't know because I mean we have a difficult 2 game stretch right here. We go to
Yeah.
North Carolina State and then we come back home to play Clemson, a team where
Right.
we had a chance there at the end last year and it just didn't really turn out. Shipley from Clemson really kind of exposed us there at the end in the run game, and there was a
And the
couple of
refs.
different things.
That was yeah. That was them two calls. Excuse my language, was bullshit.
Yeah,
Them calls are terrible.
yeah, and it just there was a lot of different things that went wrong for Florida State last year against Clemson.
Yeah.
DJ Uyunglele is a guy that they're kind of high on. I think Dabo wants to get him where he needs to be as a quarterback, but Cade Klubnik is coming in as a freshman quarterback. They're trying to figure out what they're going to do at quarterback. If he struggles, where are they going to go? And just a lot of different variables. But that defense is still very, very good. I mean, there a couple of their
Right.
linebackers, Spector and couple of those other guys are going to be out with Skowski also, and just trying to figure out different ways. But some of their pass rushers are still back from last season. It's
Yeah.
still the Clemson of old, even without Venables there anymore.
And they get Brzee back, don't they?
Yep.
Brian Brzee comes back. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just a lot of good pieces on this Clemson team still. I mean, they're number 4 in the country for a reason at this point, and
Yeah.
a lot of people talked about their down year from last season being 10-3, but overall, man, that team is really, really good,
Yeah.
even with a kind of struggling offense. I have us
Hmm.
losing this game. I think it's going to be more along the lines of maybe 2 field goals. Maybe we might lose by 6 or something like that.
Hmm.
I think it's going to be very close just because I think it's going to be a night game in Doak Campbell Stadium. And I think Florida State could shock some people in that game, but I do
Yeah.
think they may beat the spread in that rather than just win the whole game.
What is the spread right now?
I believe if I just had to project on what it was, because the spread usually doesn't get picked until later on during the contest.
Yeah.
But if I had to guess, it's probably going to be around 6.5 or so. If I had to just take a guess on how the seasons are both going to play out for Florida State and Clemson, it'll probably be around there because Clemson really doesn't play anybody before then. I believe they play NC State on the 4th game of the season, if I remember correctly.
Correct.
So there's going to be
Hmm.
some roadblocks, but I mean that Clemson team should at least be, by that time with 1 loss or 0 losses at that point.
I think Clemson's 2021 season reminded me, at least from a narrative standpoint, of our 2016 season, meaning, or 2015, meaning that record wise, I don't know how anyone can argue that was necessarily a down year.
Mm-hmm.
Because any season where you win 10 games, that is pretty much the standard of any great program. Back in the 90s when they averaged 10 and a half W's, that's not necessarily a fall off. and even with them losing their offensive coordinator, and I never even thought about this, but Tony Elliott not necessarily being as good a coordinator as I thought he was, and when I think he could have made DJ's life a lot easier
Yeah.
as far as, especially with them not necessarily having the talent. I won't say talent. They didn't have the skill sets out wide that they really needed to take advantage of a lot of the route concepts that he normally runs. They had pretty much everyone was above 6'3". They didn't have a Rodgers. They didn't have
Yep.
like a Renfro. None of them kind of guys that they used to have. Everyone was one body type. Yet you still run the same kind of concepts. And then I even fought Norvell in this with what was it? He likes to run the slot go concept a
Yep.
lot.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know for what reason he likes to run it, given he probably had too much of an option. He likes to run it with Keyshawn Helton.
Yep.
Why? Keyshawn is not fast in a quick burst. He's not strong.
Yep.
Why run that? The only person that ran that route to perfection last year was Ja'Kai Douglas.
Yep.
And for whatever reason, there were games and weeks where we didn't see him at all, even get a shot down the field. But that's beside the point.
And prayers go out to Ja'Kai Douglas, by the way.
Right.
They announced that he was out for at least this week. We'll see how that goes, but hopefully he's fine going to the later weeks with that.
Right. I hope he comes back soon. I like what he adds to the offense from a big place perspective. But I still think they'll be fine on defense, even with losing Venables, just from a talent perspective. They got a ridiculous amount of it. And until they show me they can block a line like Clemson,
yeah,
I'm not gonna believe it. And I think that I don't think I would take us covering the spread either, just simply from the standpoint of I think that will be a close game for the majority of it, but they'll eventually pull away.
Yeah.
And I think around this time of the season, especially after Wake Forest and excuse me, in the NC State game, we're gonna start to see a lot more injuries.
Yeah.
Especially I just can't see us beating Clemson right now.
Yeah, now this is where the bye week that I want to have at this point. You're having that bye week after Clemson, and you're going to play a Georgia Tech team that Jeff Collins is probably going to be out of a job by then. At that point, he is playing a ton of difficult teams. Jeff Sims got the better part of Norvell his first year there in 2020. It was embarrassing home defeat there by 3, and just it didn't really pan out the way it thought it would. And I
don't think nobody had us losing that game.
No, and I mean with their best running back going to Alabama and just a couple of different pieces are not there, and it's just a big year for Collins in terms of trying to keep his job there. I don't think I have to spend too much time on this. I think Georgia Tech is probably going to lose this game by at least 3 touchdowns.
Yeah, I can't really add much to that. I don't see a path to victory for them even before they get to us. They play a hell of a schedule.
Yeah.
And even just within the ACC, I think they play all of the best teams in our division. And if I'm not mistaken, they play a couple of the top teams from the Coastal. I think they play Virginia Tech. And then they have to play Georgia as well later in the season.
Yeah, it's going to be really exciting to kind of see everything that's going on because, there's just a lot of pressure built into coaches that have to win now. And Collins, when he built that and had that spread like system after the era that they had before with the triple option, you're just trying to find different ways to be successful. And I know Paul Johnson did a lot there when he was there at Georgia Tech, and they've had some tradition and history there, but just overall, the Collins era has not really been great, and they play a lot of difficult teams this season. And I just think a road trip to Tallahassee is probably going to put the nail in the coffin for Collins.
I'll say this real quick though. Yeah. I hope that's not one of these trap games. I hope to God that's not that one.
Yeah, and as you know, because I have a trap game in here later on that I'll kind of discuss, but just overall, I think that they can't afford to have this trap game, and Florida State's got to be ready for that one.
Mm-hmm.
But we go and we play Miami the next week. We go to Seminole Rock Stadium, as they like to say. Hopefully, we're able to dominate there. Miami's kind of discussed about their new stadium plans, but they got to remember their lease doesn't end until 32. So
yeah,
they got a couple more years there at the rented out stadium that only is going to have about 40,000 people a year, in it. Because
then they only going to come for about 2 games a year anyway. So
I know, Florida State's going to be one of them. So they're all ready for that one. But Tyler Van Dyke, he's a very talented quarterback. They're bringing in a new head coach, Mario Cristobal. They don't have Charleston Rambo there anymore, one of their top receivers. So they're kind of bringing in some transfers. I think they're bringing in Frank Ladson from Clemson. Not really much production from last season. They're just having to replace a lot on the offensive side of the ball. And then their line of scrimmage on offensive line and defensive line is not that impressive. Overall, they generate a couple of turnovers here and there, but just overall, their defense doesn't really scare me as much. You don't really have a quality receiver to throw to like Rambo, like you said, with Jarvis Brownlee and Rambo together, trying to figure that one out. And there's just not a whole lot that you can point your finger to. I think it's going to be a run-first offense. They brought in Michigan offense coordinator Josh Gaddis, and there's just a lot of different missing pieces there that you thought Miami would kind of secure this offseason. And if you haven't followed Micah Pittman on his YouTube channel, he talks about why he left Florida State or why he went to Florida State and why he left Oregon. And there were some factors in there. I mean, he wasn't getting the football because they are a run-first offense, especially with Cristobal, he's a former offensive lineman. And there was just a lot of different things going on that you just needed to pay attention to in that video because it really tells what Miami is going to be this season. Just overall, I think with everything kind of factored into it, I think Florida State can win this game, and I think they will win this game. I do think that the hype over Tyler Van Dyke should be kind of limited and shouldn't be that great. Now, he had a good season, but the problem is when we played him, he had those chunk plays in the fourth quarter that really elevated his passing yards. He didn't have a great game. I just think overall, I think Florida State is going to match up well with them overall. I think they got a much needed bye week. You turn around and have that easier game against Georgia Tech, and then you're in there playing them. And I do think Florida State's going to win this game 28-27. Got them flashing back to the block at the Rock. So hopefully DeMarcus Walker can be in spirit up there and be able to kind of help us out in that game.
This is one of those games where first let me speak on Tyler Van Dyke. I think that kid is uber talented.
Yeah.
At the same time, I don't understand the degree of hype he's getting. Like you would think he had some kind of Joe Burrow type season, a Kenny Pickett type season, the way he is being boosted up. And I know a lot of it also has to do with the new coach smell too.
Yep.
So, and why I say it's kind of a wait and see thing for me is because I don't know what the offense is going to look like. Not only did they lose Rambo, but they also lost Mike Hartley.
Yep.
And I just did the play styles and what the offense was last year compared to what Cristobal normally does is completely different. Like it's not a offense you would think you would want a gunslinger type quarterback to be in, kind of like Van Dyke is. I think their defense, I think their secondary is potentially pretty good with those two safeties. I think one of them is Williams, I think.
Yep.
I think their secondary will be pretty solid. I don't know what they have in linebacker. I know last year they were pretty undisciplined at linebacker, and I think Norvell and Dilly, they found a way to exploit that all throughout the game, playing with their eyes and whatnot. Their defensive line with Taylor, and they're somewhat talented, but on both sides of the ball, I feel more comfortable about us. But I can't necessarily say it's a win or a loss because I just don't know what to think about, man.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the difficulty about predicting these games later in the season because you really don't know. I mean, Derek King didn't even play in that game last year. It's very crazy to think about. I mean, by that time, now They're generating from a quarterback that they thought was going to be the second coming of Jesus, as they all say, because Miami fans are very optimistic about their team in the offseason. And we'll definitely see if they're able to live up to the Coastal hype of being number one in the Coastal. Overall, I think it'll be a general, fair competition. I think Florida State matches up pretty well. I think Mike Norvell wants to get a second shot to beat the Miami Hurricanes again, and I think he'll do it. The problem is the next week they're playing at Syracuse. People look at that game and they think, okay, why in the world should we be worried about Syracuse? Well, first off, as we saw with last season, Florida State was able to get their first win of the season, 33-30 win. It's a very nasty win, a game-winning field goal by Ryan Fitzgerald. Garrett Schrader had about, I think it was 282 yards, 3 touchdowns. Couldn't bring him down. Sean Tucker, another running back they really like over there, and their defense was optimistic. But the problem that I had with picking a potential loss, and I have it as a loss in this game because I think there's so much emotion that's coming off this Miami game, coming to Syracuse in back-to-back weeks where you're going on a road trip at that point. And you look at Dino Babers. He is in his 7th season at Syracuse at this point. He's got to win now at this point. Boosters are looking at that and saying, okay, you have to win. And they play Louisville to start the year. If they're able to kind of win that, okay, whatever the case is. UConn, Purdue, which is supposed to have a really good season this year. Virginia, which is also a sleeper team there. Wagner, they should be able to get past there. But then they go through a 4-game difficult kind of stretch here in NC State, at Clemson, Notre Dame, and at Pittsburgh right before they play.
They play Notre Dame?
Yes. 4-game stretch right there where I think whether it be, like I said, he is fighting for his life at this point because
I don't even think Babers is a bad coach. It's Syracuse. It's hard to win there.
That's 4 losses in a row before you play Florida State. You have to get yourself back on the right track. That is my thought process to it because I think that is a doable, Florida State's a doable team to do it against, especially if they're coming off the Miami game. And at this point in the season, I have them projected at a 6-3 record at that point. So really, they've already got bowl eligibility. They're kind of in a situation where they've got the key victory against Miami now. You played close games against Clemson. You've already got your LSU win at that point. And you've got a Syracuse team that's fighting for their head coach. Now, even if he gets fired through that 4-game stretch and they're playing an interim head coach, you saw last season against Florida when they're coming there with a 5-6 record with an interim head coach. I'm just thinking on the outside looking in, this is mainly just a Dino Babers pick. Now, it's not really on the fact that the 17 offensive and defensive starters, that defense only had 7 turnovers last year. And granted, if Cam McDonald didn't miss that block, it would have been 6. But just overall, I think this is just more of a projection of how Syracuse's season is going to go and how determined they're going to have to be at the end of the year to be able to do anything. Because, right after that, they play a Wake Forest team that's possibly could be without Sam Hartman. You never know. And then a Boston College team that we both predicted that Florida State would beat. So, if you end the season on a 3-game winning streak, that could save Dino Babers' job at that point.
That's scary to think about. I ain't gonna lie to you. And
a lot of people looked at me and they were thinking I was crazy, but honestly, when you look at the schedule preview, that's pretty rough.
And I also just to add to that, I just talked about like attrition taking into effect because granted, I think we're deep on both fronts, defense and offense, but like you said, with the emotional aspect and everything coming out of the last 4 games we'll play before then, I can see us losing the game like that because for one, like I said in the beginning, we have not been shown to just beat teams we're supposed to beat.
Yep.
We ain't shown it yet. So I can see it. I don't know if I would pick us to lose that game, but I do have a trap game though.
Oh, okay. Well, I guess we're going to go to our next contest, and that's against the Louisiana Raging Cajuns. This was formerly Billy Napier's old team. He went to Florida, which we're going to discuss after this game. They were a very dynamic offense last year, a lot more expectations. Their defense was actually something that really stood out to me, especially
Yeah.
last season. They got a lot of turnovers from last season. Lewis is gone at quarterback, so they're trying to figure out a different way and a different method to be able to pass the ball and be efficient on offense like they were in years past. They're a decent Sun Belt team. I do think that they're going to win around the 7 to 8 mark. I think they can
Yeah.
be able to do that. But just overall, I think after coming off I wouldn't say an embarrassing Syracuse loss, but an unexpected Syracuse loss, I do have Florida State coming out kind of on high cylinders at this point, and I do think they're going to win by about 4 touchdowns, maybe even 5 if you want to stretch it later in the game. I just think Florida State's too much of a talented team to have back-to-back losses, especially against a group of 5 team. I think they learned their lesson on that and get their 7th win of the season.
Hear me out.
Mm-hmm.
So this is these two games, but the one we just covered with Syracuse
Uh-huh.
and this one. This is I'm going back and forth. Like, which one am I going to go with for a trap?
Uh-huh.
Because I don't think Louisiana is going to fall off quite as much as some people think they will.
Okay.
But I also don't think they're going to be that good. But I see us going into this game. We've won a lot of big games so far.
Yep.
If it's a home game, you feeling easy. You looking forward to the Florida game. I can see this being a game where certain players don't take it serious.
Okay.
Whereas you coming into the beginning of the season, yeah, you learned from your mistakes last year, but now you going through a season and you feel like you know what it feels like to win a little bit,
Okay.
and you're starting to get a little bit big headed. I can see this being a game that get punched in the mouth, creating a narrative. Oh, they couldn't even beat Billy's old team. What they gonna do next week when they
Yeah.
play? Yada yada yada. I can
Yeah.
see that being a case just as much as I can see us losing to Syracuse. So, and then also, I can't convince myself to only have us 2 for sure losses. So
Yeah.
I have to give us a loss somewhere. So I think between this and I'm on the fence between this and Syracuse, I'm gonna have a loss. We'll go 1-1 in those games.
Okay. So you were kind of on the
Especially with
same.
me,
Yeah.
especially with me not knowing if Sam will play in the Wake Forest game.
Yeah.
So I can't really call that one either.
I understand. I mean that's fair to criticize. I mean, because the thing is too, and a lot of people think that I'm not super optimistic this season just because I predicted them at a so-called record. I won't spoil the record just yet, but
Yeah.
just in terms of that, a lot of people were thinking 9-3 and 10-2, and I'm like, okay, I get the ceiling, but the floor is also viable too because I do think this team is not quite ready to take the next step. I think they have the pieces to take a step, but I just don't know if it's going to be, that big of a step. I mean, we only won 5 games last year, so you can only take so much of a leap as it is in terms of confidence. But will they have enough to piece it together to have these bigger, NC State, Clemson, Miami,
Yeah.
Florida, LSU? Will you be able to win some of these primetime games and get yourself back on the map? Or will it be a situation where, okay, you may win 1 or 2 here and there, and that's just good enough for this year?
All of that boils down to what I've said multiple times
Mhm.
is it's hard to, like, I know we've had a conversation, but look, we
Uh-huh.
think the Florida team is 4-8.
Yep.
The ceiling is 9, maybe even 10 games if you get
Yep.
real lucky.
Hmm.
But usually teams who win 9, 10 games, they usually win a lot of close games, and those close games are usually teams that you're supposed to beat.
Yep.
We have not shown to do that, so it's kind of hard
Yeah.
to smash the button. Okay, 9, 10 wins.
Yep.
I'm not one of these people who just want to, predict the record just to
Yeah.
say, oh, this is FSU, this is the standard. That shit is
Hmm.
stupid.
Yep.
If I don't think the team is good enough or has shown me enough for me to confidently say they can win
Hmm.
that amount of games with whatever the schedule may be, I'm not going to predict it.
Yep.
It don't have nothing to do with the talent. I don't think, right? I think they're talented enough to win 9 games.
Yeah.
I don't think they're any less talented than anybody in the conference outside of Clemson,
Yep.
and Miami to a lesser in certain spots. But I can't give them 9-10 for sure. I'm more the lines of an 8-4, 7-5 if you're on the
Yeah.
wrong side of some close games.
Yeah.
Because I think you could have been 7-5 last year with a few different results. If you'd have got your stuff together in the Jacksonville State game, and if you maybe didn't turn the ball over 6 times in one
Yeah.
game, if you, I don't know, didn't start Mackenzie Milton at all.
Yep.
So I just got to see it. I can't give him, I can't give him 9 for sure.
Yeah.
I can see it because, like I said, with some of these games we've gone through, I can't
Mm.
really call yet because I
Yeah.
don't know
Yeah.
what other teams are going to look like as far as that quarterback situation, and then with us, just in general, because I got to see us play first.
Yeah, and this last game is really hard to predict because this is the 12th game of the season. We're playing them on
Mm-hmm.
Black Friday. Kind of a recent change. It was supposed to be on Saturday, turned to Friday. Just a lot of different things that Florida State's got to factor into. We talked about it before. They lost and was unable to go bowling last season because of that
Right.
interim head coach. And
That
it
was
was
a
a
tough
lot of
one.
different factors. I mean, that was something we got Emory Jones to struggle in that game, but then Anthony Richardson comes in there and throws and is really successful against that defense. And you're trying to find ways to be successful. And Anthony Richardson has showcased an ability to be successful. But the problem is coming through Billy Napier's first year, you really look at his schedule, and I'll just name off a couple of teams: Utah, Kentucky, Tennessee, Missouri, LSU, Georgia, Texas A&M, South Carolina, and then us. That's a brutal schedule. So
That's a lot of good defenses.
if you look at it and you think about it, I could see Florida being in this game at about a 5-6 record. Mm, and just in
Mm-hmm.
terms of just being realistic, I mean, because I don't think they're going to beat South Carolina. I don't think they're going to beat Texas A&M or Georgia or
Mm-hmm.
Utah.
I
You
don't think they're
might,
going to beat LSU.
and I mean that Tennessee or Kentucky, whichever way you view on that one, because I think they're about the same team, but they're both pretty talented at that. They can maybe split a game between that. So then you're looking at six losses at that point. Will Florida
Mm-hmm.
come in there and be motivated again as a 5-6 team, coming in there in a road environment where Florida State, at my projection, is already 7-4. They've already
Mm-hmm.
secured bowl eligibility at this point. It's at a point where you're thinking, okay, where are we going to as a program? Do we have anything else to play for at this point? And sure, 8-4 would be a great thing to play for, but you've
Mm-hmm.
already got your goal of being bowl eligible at this point. You've already had a pretty good season with a win over LSU and a win over Miami. You've had some close contests against NC State and Clemson, but really, I factor it into, okay, what does Florida have to play for in this situation? What does Florida State have to play for? And I definitely think, and I know some people might think I'm crazy because Florida is not as good as they used to be, especially on the line of scrimmage. I think
Yeah.
Florida's going to win this game and get to 6-6.
A lot of this is me just tired of it. I I can't take losing to Florida.
Yeah.
I can tolerate Miami just strictly because I'm a Baltimore Ravens
Uh,
fan, and Ed Reed is my favorite player ever.
okay.
I know, but I don't hate them as much as I hate Florida. I fucking hate Florida. I hate blue and I hate orange,
Hey,
and them
I'm there with
together
you.
is
Yep.
horrible. But on a real tip, like I think Anthony Richardson is talented, but even
Yeah.
more so than Jordan Travis, he don't stay healthy.
Yeah.
And I don't think enough people give that recognition. When it comes to us with Jordan Travis, everyone acknowledges the self issues and how that can easily affect the record we
Yeah.
have. Anthony Richardson barely played 6 games last year.
Yep.
So I don't know, and I don't know who's behind them. I don't necessarily have any faith in their offense as far as the
Yeah.
trenches. And they, even more than Miami, have, I keep up with the rivals more than anything. They're more than Miami have been
Yeah.
worried about the talent outside. So people are wanting him to have this breakout season and all of this. But even the coaches are worried about they don't have any talent outside to stretch the
Yep.
field vertically, which is one of his strengths, throwing it deep and throwing it short. Like most athletic
Yeah.
quarterbacks like his, they're not really trying to go, they don't want him to scheme up and have to read the middle of the field and all of that. But they don't have the talent to do that. I think with our defense, just like they showed last year, excuse me, I think they'll be good enough to keep that offense at bay. Keep their offense at bay. And I don't know too much about what their defense is going to look like. I know their secondary is pretty good. They got some good DBs for sure. But the rest of it, I don't know. They lost their best linebacker.
Yep.
One to the transfer portal, one went to the draft, and I don't necessarily know that their defensive line is as good as it was last year either. And I see this as one of those games where, Norvell has already beaten Miami.
Yep.
He still hasn't beaten Florida, and this will be year 3. I think this is going to be one. And I know Jamie Robinson, one of the leaders of the team,
Yep.
hates Florida, hate a few players on the team and all that. I think they're going to want to end off the season strong, and I think I got them beating Florida.
Okay. So what do you have us at? 8-4? Is that right?
Yes.
Around that.
I have us losing to Clemson, NC State, possibly Wake Forest if old boy plays.
Yeah.
Possibly Louisville, but I got it as a win, and I think I didn't call the Miami game either because I don't know.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Much about.
Like I said, that's why I'm doing a lot of different things on fifth quarter, and I'll go ahead and shout that out. I've done a couple articles there doing 3 game by game previews and everything. It's very hard to dictate because I could be talking about a player in that article and they get hurt by the time we play them. So
yeah,
you never can tell. I mean, they can be very inconsistent. They can just lose their starting job altogether. It's just a lot of different factors there.
And with Miami, like it would be different if Josh Gaddis was the primary play caller in Michigan.
Yeah.
He wasn't.
Yep.
He wasn't the primary play caller, so I don't necessarily know his style.
Yeah.
So I can't, tell what it would be like going against our defense.
It's just weird, man. I'm trying to figure out how we're going to be able to be successful, and I think a 7-5 record would be okay. And everybody asked what record do you think to keep Mike Norvell's job? And I know a lot of fans keep this perspective, and they're really pessimistic because of the last couple of seasons that we've had. And I definitely think that 7-5 is a good turning point. I think you can really base a little bit more positive momentum off of it. It's probably not what we all want because we all want it to be Florida State again. We all want Jameis Winston to be throwing for national, throwing the football and national championships and everything like that. But it's just very you have to start somewhere at that point. And when you've went down the mountain a little bit more, it's a little bit harder to get back on top. And you just really have to think there's a lot of factors that go into winning a championship. It's not all about just, having the best roster and going out there. Because if you did, Georgia would probably be there more often than not and just won their first championship in over 40 years. So, I mean, really, when you think about it, I think a 7-5 record can do very good things for Mike Norvell. I think it can basically deliver some optimism. I think if he wins 8, I think he gets an extension.
Yeah, I think if he won 6, he would more than likely keep his job. I don't think he'd get fired, but it would be one of them situations where you are pretty much on the hot seat.
Yep.
7-5, that's noticeable progression.
Yeah.
And I think what I worry about with 7 or 6 is, and I'll get into one of my predictions, is just I don't know how many recruiting battles, depending on the games you win, that will help with.
Okay.
And 8 wins, I think it'll be one of how coaches, it'll come out, so-and-so is getting an extension. I think he'll get like a verbal extension.
Yeah.
I don't know if they'll really sign something. And then if he's smart, he would ask for more staff. I think that would be the best thing to do. But I don't know the politics in it and how all of that goes. But yeah, I think, man, 8 would be phenomenal from a recruiting standpoint. Again, depending on the games that you win.
That's true.
And just overall for the morale of the fan base, because it's been bad for 4 or 5 years now.
Exactly. All right, so we're going to go ahead and go through, and this is a segment that I wanted to discuss with you about, and this is basically your 3 most important players at this point. You know how basically ESPN does a lot of their things where they do the impact players, and they have the 3 guys that are sitting there. Who are those guys for you on this team?
I think I'll go in order. I think 3, I will go with Jamie Robinson.
Okay.
Just from the perspective of needing one of those guys that'll lead by example. And regardless of who you playing, he going to play his ass off.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like Fabian and even to a lesser degree, Bethune and Deloach seem like more of like the vocal kind of guys.
Yeah.
Jamie just seems like I ain't with all that. I'm gonna go out here and just show what I'm gonna do. Jamie Roberts, and then with him, if he can even elevate from what he was last year, once he finally went to safety, now he has a whole year being in safety. I think that does wonders for the
Yeah.
secondary, and we need that secondary to be good with all the quarterbacks we have in this league.
Mm-hmm.
Two, I would say, I want to say 2A and 2B, or just any receiver.
Yeah.
But just from a talent perspective, I'll say Johnny Wilson, just because what a big target like that can do for you, either vertically or even possession wise in the medium field, is a lot. And I think if anybody can become a vertical or red zone presence, that does so much for an offense. Like a lot of people complain about, Cam McDonald doesn't improve. He's the same.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you don't have anybody to stretch the field around.
Yep.
It's easy to stop tight end and medium routes when nobody has to respect anybody outside. You don't have anything around them. They use Brock Byers, but he's a freshman. For one, Cam ain't Brock Byers.
Yeah.
Two, look at what they have around him.
Yep.
Look who's blocking for his QB. Look who's throwing him the ball. This ain't James Blackman, McKenzie Milton, and JT struggling with confidence. Like you need I can't think of a tight end, a good tight end, who's had a bad quarterback. That shit don't exist.
Yep.
Like a lot of the receivers on our roster right now are bad or not that good and looked down upon. But you got to also think about like the QBs and the offensive line they had.
Yeah.
Like James Blackman had a deep ball and that was it.
Yep.
I'm not even gonna go down that rabbit hole, but somebody, hopefully Johnny Wilson and even Pittman or even Deuce Spann, somebody who can stretch the field vertically. And I don't think that's McLean. I don't think he has that kind of speed. I think he is one of those deer, like he runs like he's long strider. I don't see him just taking the top off of something. Even if Johnny Wilson don't blow by somebody, throw the ball in his vicinity, he's gonna catch the ball because he's 6'7". You get that to happen, and I think that opens up your short game for the tight ends and running backs, which we have a plethora of who can make plays. Mm-hmm. That does a lot. And number one, it's got to be Jordan Travis.
Yep.
Keeping him in the game and his confidence up is everything. Like you have to protect that kid, even with him playing as hard as he does.
Exactly.
Hopefully he smartens up about when to take hits and when not to. But I love the way he plays. He just want to win.
Yeah.
But you got to keep his confidence up. You got to keep him upright when he's throwing the ball. And I think we'll do a lot better of running the ball without the QB.
Yep.
To a point where he don't have to be involved in the run game so much for it to be effective. But even when we're not having designed read option plays, him being out there, you still can't just have your ends rushing up the damn field trying to get. You can't play like that. You got to play in more of a spy technique, or even have a spy linebacker or nickel or somebody on him at all times.
Yeah.
And that's gonna make it easier on getting open in space from a zone perspective and beating man coverage. Him being in the game changes everything.
Yeah, and I'll go through my three real quick, and mine are just basically dictated through what it's going to take for Florida State to be successful on the field. I think Johnny Wilson, like I alluded to before, 6'7" receiver, have to go up and get the ball. He's going to be one of your guys that's going to have to be able to get on those critical third downs. You got a guy like Dennis Briggs, who I think you're replacing Keir Thomas and Jermaine Johnson. You're going to have a guy that's inside and out as long as he is healthy. He had the injury against Louisville, but you got to make sure that he is healthy and up to date with everything. I think him on the defensive line is going to be very, very pivotal for what Florida State does defensively. And then the last one I have is Micah Pittman. And this is simply not just as a receiver, but as a punt returner. Our special teams was absolutely atrocious last season. And just for us to even – and when I go to that stadium this Saturday, if I see a Pittman catching a punt and returning it for 8 yards, I will be screaming at the top of my lungs because that's something we have not seen it. And that's just something that I think you have to really think with those three players. I think it's going to be really pivotal for Florida State to really do well with these three players to be able to be successful on the field. We got about 5 or so minutes left to go in the recording and everything. I'm going to quickly go through the three bowl predictions, and then we'll get out of here. I'm going to go ahead and start off with you first.
I want to. Okay, one is I think that we will have a receiver to eclipse 700 yards.
Okay.
For the first time since I think Terry, of course.
Yeah.
But I think in 18, him and Naquan Murray both had over 700.
Mm-hmm.
And also in that same prediction, I think because of that, I think Cam will at least get 300 yards this year.
Okay.
There's nobody. I don't see how anybody who can run routes like he can doesn't get more touches and get open more often. But two, I think the defense, not the defensive line, but the defense as a whole will have about 15 sacks this season.
Okay.
Because I think they will. I'll even say 20 because I think they're going to blitz a lot more often. Mm-hmm. Now that you can do more things because you're not worried about your linebackers not knowing where the fuck to go.
Yep.
And zone coverage and whether they can run with a man. I ain't going to say no name. But I think you can do a lot more with the defense now. And both your safeties are good at running down and engaging blocks and blitz. So I think he's going to blitz a lot more this season too. And my final one is I think the defense is going to be a top 25 defense.
Okay. I'm going a little bit different approach. First one, I think Florida State will have over 2,500 rushing yards on the season. With all their rushing attack and everything, I think it's going to be a pretty decent year for us running the football. I think last year we had 33 sacks. I think Florida State is going to eclipse that, and they're going to have 34 sacks. So they're going to have more sacks than last season.
I was scared of that. See, that's why I went so low on it.
Yeah.
But I don't – because Jermaine and Kier – I played against Kier in high school.
Uh-huh.
Just for a lot of the stuff he did, like Kier isn't that talented.
Uh-huh.
Kier's like 6'1".
Yeah.
And his arms ain't that long. He just knows how to fucking play football.
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody is Jermaine Johnson. I think we have good defensive ends.
Yep.
But that's why I said the defense as a whole will get 20 or some odd sacks. But it's hard. It's just I have to see it.
And I will give you something here. You'll be excited. I think Florida State, for the first time since DJ Matthews did it back against Miami, we will have a kickoff or a punt return touchdown this season. So
I think it's gonna happen Saturday.
So it might. I hope so. But anyway, hope we have a lot of fireworks and excitement this season. Super excited to be on the combines of Doak Campbell Stadium. It's going to be super excited. Super glad that Khalil got to join us today and discuss all of his thoughts, get all of everything out there because Florida State football is right around the corner. But until next time, this is Norvell Central coming back at you with another YouTube video. I hope all of you enjoyed the video today. Be sure to like, subscribe, and comment your thoughts. Let us know what you thought about what we thought today. And as always, go Noles.